Welcome to the Street of Dublin, Simon, the podcast which takes you straight to the front line of Dublin's homeless crisis. For over 13 years, our community of staff and volunteers of Dublin, Simon, have been making homes a reality for the growing numbers of people coming to use for help. Through this podcast, you will meet different members of the community and learn about the triumphs, trials, and tribbles of closing the door on homelessness for good. So I'm Fatima from TU Dublin student, and now we are with Gemma, our special guest, and thank you for taking time all to be here. It's a glad to have you here. So yeah, how are you doing, Gemma?
I'm good. Yeah,
Good.
excited to be here. Something different.
Yeah, how you feel?
I've never done this before, so we'll give it a go and we'll see how it goes. But I'm delighted to share the work that we do in Dublin Simon and to give it an audience and let people know what the challenges of some of our clients face every day.
So yeah, it's really nice stories. So first, tell us a little bit about you. We would like to know you more about your experience, about yourself.
About myself.
Yeah.
So I'm don't even know what to say. So I'm Gemma. I've three kids at home.
Good.
They keep me busy outside of work. They're very into the GAA and that kind of thing. So we spend a lot of time. Our weekends have football matches and Gaelic match and hurling matches. I love to do the gym. So outside of work, I'd go to the gym a good bit. I'm the great group of us that go kind of very early in the morning.
Oh yeah.
And it's a good laugh. And I recently rekindled my own love with the GAA and started playing with the mothers and others in my local community, and that's been really great fun. We had a match last night.
Oh, good.
And it was great crack, just for the fun.
And in the matches like Gaelic one or
Yeah, Gaelic football, yeah. So it's kind of like a women's version of Gaelic football. So it was set up for mothers to get us off the sidelines and onto the pitch.
Oh wow, it's good to distract. And did you grow up here in Dublin? Are you from here?
No, I am not from Dublin. No, I grew up in a really small place called Moynalvey. So it's in Meath. And yeah, I grew up there. I have four siblings. So I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. So we grew up outside the city centre.
Nice.
So it would have been different, yeah. I know, like when we growing up, I'd have a lot of relatives in the city centre, and they always called us their country cousins, even though we're only 40 minutes from the city centre.
So. Okay. What do you study? Like.
After I did my Leaving Cert, I went on to study social care which would have been Dublin Institute of Technology at the time, and I did that for 3 years. When I graduated in social care, I went on and I did a certificate in drug counselling and intervention skills. And then following on from that, I did a master's part-time for 2 years, again with DIT. And I did that in child, family and community studies.
Wow. Yeah. And when did you start to working in...
So I started working in homeless services. I started with a college placement actually in 2009. I was due to do a college placement with young people.
Okay. Oh.
And it was the first year that all students had to apply for Garda clearance to do a placement, and the Garda clearance was really, really slow. So my placement with the young people had fallen through, and I ended up getting a placement in a homeless service just outside the city. And I absolutely loved it. And that's kind of where my journey in working in homeless services started. So I was a student there for a year. I worked there 2 days a week for my college year. And then at the end of that, they took me on as a relief worker. And I worked there. So I would have worked as like covering sick leave, covering annual leave. And then I worked there for the rest while I was in college as a relief worker. And then when I graduated in 2010, I got a full-time full-time job as a night support worker. So I worked as a night project worker in a one-night only hostel.
Oh.
So that would have been, at the time, it would have opened at 4:00 in the evening. The guys would have booked in over the free phone throughout the day. And then they'd come in and stay the night, and then they'd leave again at 9:30. So we would have provided food and like like a place to have a wash, do wash some clothes for them, and a bed for the night. And it would have been dorms as well at the time. So I'm very happy to say
Really
in the 12 years we've moved on.
Wow. Do you have a good experience, like good story when you was like in this?
Yeah, I absolutely loved working there. It was really, really busy. There was 55 all male hostel. I was one of the only women that worked there.
Wow.
And I have really fond memories of working there. You know, the clients that come in would really look after you. And, you know, like there was one TV room, and we'd all sit and watch the soaps together, or if there was a football match on, there was just huge banter. And I've met some wonderful people through there. And I suppose the sad piece of that is that a lot of those men that I've met there, I've carried on to meet them throughout my career.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No. And when you start to work with Dublin Simon?
So I started with Dublin Simon in 2018. So I was working with a different NGO, and a management position came up in Dublin Simon community, and in the NGO I was in, there was no management opportunities coming up, so I decided to put my name out there, and I applied for the job. So it was a long-term supported accommodation that I applied for the manager of. And I was successful in that. So it was a medium support service that I was managing. So that would be that staff are on site Monday to Saturday, 9 to 5. And the residents that would be there would be able to live independently, so they wouldn't need staff at night, but they would need maybe a little help with their mental health or physical health or just sustaining a property. But they'd have their own key to their own front door, an apartment. So I worked there for 3 years, 2008 to 2021. And then a senior management role came up, and I applied for that, and I was successful. And then now I'm senior manager for emergency services for Dublin Simon community.
So you have a lot of experience. And
yeah, so I've literally worked from student in emergency services, or started as a student in emergency services, had a bit of a sabbatical, going to long-term supportive accommodation, and then came back to emergency services then in 2021.
Wow. And so you have a lot of time like working in this, so what are the biggest changes between these times? Like
there's been a huge amount of change. Huge amount of change. So like I started off in one night only hostels. They're very few now. So we work the supported temporary accommodation is the emergency services now. And that model kind of changed in around 2010. That model kind of changed where people would come into services. The idea would be that they're given a placement for 6 months. They'd be given a key worker. And the key worker's role then would be to do a support plan around them of what they want to do, what kind of things they needed to address to make home a reality, to move them on out of homelessness. And that model kind of came in 2010, and that changed the structure of homeless services. So we would have had a change that, like, one night only hostels became 24-hour services, which was a huge thing. It was really needed. I've seen kind of ups and downs with rental property, the rental market. You know, we're in a huge crisis now. Supply is really short. Where back when I first started, supply was in huge demand. It was we were bringing tenants to clients to properties, and we were deciding whether we wanted it or not. Landlords were just crying out for people to take the property. We're the other end of that. We're crying out for landlords to please increase supply. We need properties. There's been a lot of change in the system. So like previously, we'd have clients who maybe need long-term supported accommodation. So that would be where there's different levels of those type of services. Some, like the one I explained, a medium support, which would be that staff are only on site during the day. But then there'd be other with high support. So high support would be people with very complex needs, and they need staff 24 hours a day. Wow. And I suppose a big change in that system over the years is that the referral process has changed. So previously, if Dublin Simon had a spot, it would be advertised, and we'd get hundreds and hundreds of applications to whittle through. But that system has become more centralised, which is really good because it means that it's centralised now. And if a vacancy comes up, there's a panel that meet and they look at the applications. So the people that most in need are getting the places.
Okay. And what are the biggest challenges, like, for example, now, like, the biggest challenge to work in this kind or to give the support and for
yeah,
the clients too?
the biggest challenge I think is the dynamic of clients that's coming to us. You know, when I first started in homeless services, you would have very much had maybe a drinker who's homeless or
Okay.
but now we're seeing such a variety of clients coming to us. We've like even in the last 12 months, so in 2020, 4% of the people accessing emergency services were working. At the end of Q2 of this year, 13% of our people who in services are in employment, and that's not that they're getting employment through their support plan. They're actually coming to us employed. So, and they have really, really good jobs. The problem is there's just no properties for them. Another dynamic that we're seeing a change is we're seeing an increase in elderly homelessness. So you'll see from the latest figures as well that there's an increase of 30% of people from the age of 44 to 64 presenting to homeless services for the first time, which that's a huge change. Like I remember back in roughly about 2017 in the service I was working, we had 3 elderly people present to the service.
Okay.
And at the time we were like, this is crazy. How is this happening? But now it's just increasing and increasing again.
Increasing. Okay. Could you tell us like good experience, a good story with one of the?
Like I've had so many wonderful experiences with clients over the years. I got the pleasure to accompany a lady to the Pope to visit the Pope. That's one of the highlights of my career. That lady, I worked with her for a long time, and it was really special to get to share. Like she's really religious, and to get to share that with her was an amazing experience. Seeing people get their home, get a key to the door, there is just nothing like that to see somebody have their keys handed to them. It's just an amazing experience in your life. And I feel very privileged that our service users have allowed me to be part of their lives. You know, coming into homeless services is really difficult. It's traumatizing. If you can put yourself in their shoes, that if you have nowhere else to turn and you have to knock at the door and you have to navigate this system, and then you have to come into a congregated setting. Some of the services are shared bedrooms. So you have to share with a complete and utter stranger.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, it's
difficult.
a really difficult time for people. So I feel very privileged that people have let me be part of their lives. Like, I think an example recently, so I'm not frontline anymore. And recently I parked my car, and I happened to be just parked outside one of the Dublin Simon independent housings.
Okay.
And I seen 2 staff going in the door. And there was a couple going in after them. And I was parking my car, I was getting my bits outside, and the couple came out and they had their tenancy in their hand and they did this little jump and they danced up and down, and it made my day. It was kind of been a really busy week. There've been lots of challenges, and then I just pulled up. It was a Friday morning, and just to see them dancing, like
feel
like wow. And like we've been part of that. Like, why we might not be directly involved in it, we've been, as an organisation, we've all been part of it.
And you still like in contact with the clients?
Yeah, so I do. So there's 4 buildings under my remit. I like to pop around, and if I'm meeting my managers, I try to meet them in their services. And I just love the buzz of being in there, and meeting the guys that are on the ground. It is, and hearing their stories and seeing, like, I suppose when you're working in homeless services, you have to yes, the big thing is to make home a reality and that they move out the door. But I'm really about that we celebrate the small wins along the way. Be that we have a client successful with a referral to detox. That's a massive achievement for them. So you have to celebrate that.
Yeah.
Or if we have a client that maybe they've completed a programme with our client development, our client development department, that's a massive achievement as well. And it's to build the confidence back up in people that they have the ability to live independently, and they have the ability to achieve things in life. I think our Scrappy But Happy book that client development do is it's an amazing piece of art. So it's a book where clients from across the year, the client development department gather poems, and they gathered paintings that the clients have worked on throughout the year, and they put them in a book, and then the book is published, and we have like a an event called Scrappy But Happy. And the clients that participated are presented with certificates, and then we normally have like somebody come and who's reviewed the book. So Patrick Frayne from The Independent did it this year. And it's really amazing. Like my own daughter, I came home from that with the book, and my own daughter brought it into school the next day to read the poems, just to show, like, and it's to remind people that just because someone's in homeless services, they're so talented. Like, we have some of the most talented people living in our services. So it's great. And even some of the books, like some of the Scrappy But Happies, like clients would say that they hadn't sat down and drawn in years, or they hadn't sat down and wrote a poem in years. So it's really inspiring.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Like, and also they know, like, they discovered the skills and the talents.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you can see the difference when they start and with the scrum. It's really good. So, and now, for example, on Christmas, how is the work and challenging?
Yeah. Christmas is a really hard time. And I will say that credit to my managers that work with me, that they go above and beyond to make Christmas really special in the services. It's a really hard day for people. It's, you know, there's so much media hype about Christmas, and you have your ads with the family coming together, and, you know, that's not a reality for some of our clients. Now, some of it is, they have great family support behind them, but for some it's not. And we really put a huge effort into making Christmas really special. Like, you know, tonight in one of the services, the toy show is on, so the staff are doing a really big event around the toy show for everybody to watch it together. We get Christmas trees, Christmas decorations. Microsoft help us out with some lovely baked goods and stuff like that, and they're a really big highlight for the clients. There'll be, you know, Christmas jumper days. So we make sure that every client, there's a gift on Christmas morning for every client, and if a client isn't going to be there on Christmas Day, they get it before they leave, or they'll get it the day they come back. But we always do for, like, there's some clients that will spend the day in bed.
Yeah,
and it is just a day, and staff will be there to check in, and, you know, staff give up their day. And I think what really highlighted it this year for me was when we do rotas for Christmas. So many people volunteered that wanted to spend Christmas Day in the services, which is really a credit to the staff that we have.
And how people can help, like, can be volunteer?
They'd go through our volunteer department. So we have a volunteer manager, and they'd apply to that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, or they can volunteer with the client development programme, or they can volunteer with the soup run.
Like, now these days is busy, and I think always, like, how you manage your time and, like, personal life with work.
I think that's definitely something I've learned over the years. My house is really, really busy, and I'm really, really lucky. I have the most amazing support at home, from my husband and right down to my mum, my dad, and my siblings. And I have wonderful neighbours as well. So they really support for me to go to work. And I have a lovely au pair as well.
Oh, good.
So, like, balancing it, it can be a juggle sometimes. And switching off can be hard. But like I've said, like, I go to the gym, I go out with friends.
Yeah, because also you have the time to do,
well, you have to make the time.
Yeah.
You know, like, self-care is really important in this field, and I think the longer you're in it, the more you realise how important it is. So I'm quite strict to myself. I will make sure I go to the gym. Like, that is, I go to the gym before work. Or you know, I do take my annual leave, make sure that I'm taking my time off, make sure you're switching off. My colleagues on my team, you know, there's a team of us who are senior managers. We all really look out for each other and cover. If someone wants time off, we'll cover each other and stuff like that. So all those little things really come together to make it work, to balance it.
Yeah.
I definitely think getting out and about and having plans. So, like, you know, going to see, like, we've the toy show tonight. That's a big day. We had to put up the Christmas tree last night. We had to put up the Christmas tree last night because the Christmas tree had to be up for the toy show.
Good.
So stuff like that. You just have to prioritise. You know, it is a job that it is hard to switch off come the evening time, but you have to make yourself.
Yeah. I saw there when we went. I saw the different activities that you made with the clients.
Yeah.
So how is, like, for example, one day for them? Like, how? Yeah.
Yeah. So, God, it depends on the service. So we do have volunteers that run in the services. So we generally get to come in for like a 12-month placement, or they come in for a 6-month placement, and they will run activities. So like it could be as simple as a breakfast morning, could be a breakfast morning on, and then there could be like a wood burning exercise in the evening. So like typically, in the services we have certain requirements that we have to do. So like we have to do room checks. So that be where like staff will go around like every couple of hours and check everybody in the building is okay, check in with them. We have a pilot programme going on in emergency services at the moment as well, where we have some specialised project workers. And we brought that in because we were seeing a lot of complex cases come into emergency services. And, we want to sustain people in our services. So we brought that in as an extra kind of support to sustain people in our services. So they would do more intensive work with people with complex needs. So maybe it might be that they have complex mental health need and they have no mental health support. So that worker would work with them specifically around their mental health to get those supports all together. Or it could be that they present with challenging behaviour. And the specialised project worker again would work with them around how can we manage your behaviours in our service so we can sustain you, so we can make home a reality for you. I think we've had some really great success with that role. One case in particular it sticks out to me because when I first started in emergency services, I did some shifts in services, and a client had come in. They were really anxious in the service. They were knocking on the office door, like I'd say about 50 times in the space that I was there, and staff were going to them and supporting them, but it was like a insecurity piece.
Okay.
Yeah. And the specialised project workers start working with this person, and they since they've been engaged with them, they've sustained their placement. So prior to coming into that service, they had been in 12 different placements in 12 months. They've now been in that service for over 12 months. They have they've engaged with a mental health team. They've done work with their addiction team.
Wow.
And recently they've started to re-engage with their children.
Oh, okay.
So they're huge steps to celebrate.
Yeah.
And then out of the process of that, a long-term supported referral has been sent in. So hopefully they'll be successful at one of the panel meetings soon. But they've come on, the work that person has put into themselves has just been amazing.
Yeah, you can see the difference.
And you can see the difference.
Wow.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, tell us more a little bit about the story. For example, now you saw the difference and the behavior could be, and how is it with the staff. And
the staff are really proud of them. And it's a great achievement for the staff as well.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of the staff because I know the challenges that they face every day. And, I pop in and out and I say hello and I sit down with them but they do face some really challenging they've faced some really challenging situations and really complex cases. Recently we had an older gentleman present, and he had no shoes and hadn't had shoes for days. So his feet were all cut and had blisters. Wow. And for me as a senior manager, the first thing I hear is that they were gone down the shop to buy slippers, something soft to put on his feet. And that's the type of people we have working for us.
I think
they're there to support and help, which is really, really great.
Could you tell us more stories about when was really the situation was really difficult, and then was with?
Just this week we've had a piece of advocacy done where a gentleman was told he was getting a home. Then it turned out that he wasn't getting a home, and the key worker involved did a massive piece of advocacy, and the gentleman's gone to view a home today. So that can be quite complicated. We've recently had as well a case that really struck me actually just during the summer. We had a service user come in. They'd become homeless through, I think they'd lost their property through just the landlord selling it or something very
now
very common now that a landlord was pulling out of the market. They were with our service for a couple of weeks and they were diagnosed with cancer. And they were starting chemo and they were sharing a bathroom. Because of the way the services are set up, we don't have ensuite bathrooms in every room. And that really struck me, and that we've gotten to a point that we have people having cancer treatment and having to come back to a congregated setting. Now we were really lucky there happened to be a vacancy in one of our services that's a long-term supported accommodation that we actually have referral rights to. So the manager and the project workers in that service were able to put a case together, and I was able to bring it then to the senior manager of that service, and that person was actually been given a long-term supported accommodation, which was a great, because someone who's in
the situation, like also the notice is really like difficult, and the situation is worse,
and like even to come back to, like, you know, to be going through treatment for cancer. And then to be living in a supported temporary accommodation, like, you just can't stand over that. And you have to put the person first.
Totally.
So we were really, really lucky in that situation that we were able to do that. And that's one thing that's great about Dublin Simon, that
really
we do have so many options that we can do that.
And also, like, I think a lot of people support and help this situation. So talking a little bit about the homeless and what the people sometimes think. What do you think there is the common misunderstanding about the homeless?
I think people think that it's miles away from them. Like, I think they see somebody sitting kind of tapping on the side of the street and they think, oh yeah, that's what a typical homeless person looks like. Where I would think that it can happen to any of us. None of us are sacred, or none of us, it could happen to any one of us. I definitely think that people are a bit naive when it comes to homelessness. They think that maybe someone has done something to deserve it, or that there's a big story behind it. That's why they've ended up in this situation. Where we're seeing more and more now that it's really that landlords are pulling out, and that they just don't have anywhere to go, or they've maybe worn out the couches that they could sleep on, or that in order to actually get anywhere they have to go into home services to get that end goal. And like, the waiting lists for social housing are really long, and that's nobody's fault. It's just there's just the numbers of people that are coming forward and needing housing. We're in a housing crisis. So I do think people have a misunderstanding that they don't realise it could happen to anybody. Like, I would genuinely say that there's people in our services who don't even realise, who go to work every day, who maybe go visit family, and their family have no idea that they're coming back to us every night.
Yeah. Like, this is a long time you working here, and there are a lot of challenge, and I know you also see a good, like, you have a good experience. But what is your first motivation to continue working in this?
Oh, the clients I work with. The clients I work with. So, my office is based beside one of our LTA services, and there's a client that lives there who I actually key worked when I was a key worker. And I don't see him very often, but sometimes I'd often meet him when I'm popping in and out of my car, or I'm popping just walking along the road, and I absolutely love bumping into him. I love the chats that we have. Seeing what he's achieved in his life really motivates me. I remember the first one of the first outings I had when I was a key worker. We were going over to actually Dublin Simon Respite Unit. It was a referral, and he was having his assessment. So we were going over, and I said to him, like, look, we'll go for a coffee, or we'll go for a bite to eat on the way back. And he actually turned around to me and asked me, was I going to sit in a restaurant with him? And I said, of course I'm going to sit in a restaurant with you. So like we went, we had our lunch out, and he's like, people are going to stare at you, and I said, I don't care. I don't. So like, meeting him and seeing how far he's come on in his life really motivates me. And seeing the like the small goals that people achieve every day. Like, take the Scrappy But Happy book. I visited one of our services in the city centre, and a client there had poems in the Scrappy But Happy this year, and he stood in the reception and read me his poems. And I'm really proud of that. And I know, like, I might not directly work with that client, but I know that my work I'm doing is contributing for that. So seeing the small wins that they have, the people I've met, the clients I've met, the staff I work with, like, it's not all doom and gloom. It's really challenging environment. But I've met some of the most amazing people in my work, and I'm really, feel really privileged that they've allowed me to be part of their journey.
Yeah. So do you receive like a good complaint about one of your clients? So do you
Yeah, I
receive-
actually I thought about this when I saw this.
yeah.
A client actually wrote a poem about me.
This one.
I was leaving a service, going to another service, and they wrote a poem about me. And I actually have it framed on my wall.
Oh,
Because it's
good.
such a compliment to me. I'm delighted. I was so chuffed that they took the time to write that about the work that they've done for me.
Also, I saw like the guys, they do some compliment for the house.
Yeah,
Aren't they?
yeah, they do
Like-
feedback for the house or the service that they've been in, for the staff that they've worked with. Yeah,
Yeah, and
But
also
that's
I saw
definitely-
like they help the house. Like for example, I saw the big paint and the
they do. Yeah, we do murals in the house, or they do like we have in some of the services, some of the activities that you mentioned that you saw would actually be run by clients,
Good. It's
and
really
that they
nice.
share their talents with each other.
It's really nice to
Yeah.
see and keep this. What do you think is the biggest priority?
In the next couple of weeks, I think Christmas, making Christmas really special. So that although that they might be in a homeless service this Christmas, that it's really special and that it's one that they can remember, that it's a positive experience, that it's not like, oh, 2022, that was the Christmas I was in that service, that the day is positive for them. So that's a priority. And like making home a reality is always a priority. That we're getting positive outcomes and
positive
moving our
outcomes,
clients on and advocating that they get the home that they need.
Okay, and like backing a little bit about the like for example the pandemic and now. So could you see the difference on how was like during the pandemic, like was too hard to help people and how working.
Well, like the pandemic kind of showed that we are capable of housing a lot of people. Like we had more move-ons in the pandemic than we
Yeah.
had. Like in one of our services, we moved on the full capacity of the service during the pandemic, but we've come out of a pandemic and that's all disappeared, which is really disappointing. So like although we were in crisis with a pandemic, we were really able to look at our homeless situation and do something about it. Like the work that was done during the pandemic was. It was unreal. Like out of nowhere, there was, services capacity was reduced,
Yeah.
which was I know that might sound like, oh, reducing capacity, that's terrible. But smaller services mean that people get more intensive work. People couldn't be moved around the services, so people were staying in services. So people were having, like, I'm a firm believer that people need a stable base, that people need to feel safe and secure for any kind of work to be done. They need they need to feel safe and secure, and the pandemic gave people that time to settle. And we had a huge amount of move-ons, where now we're coming out the other side of that, and I think our move-ons are the worst I've ever seen them. Our HAP move-ons our stat is that they should be 50%, and we're below that this year. But the properties simply aren't there. Like the latest DAF report had 345 properties in Dublin in November, I think it was, and 345. So our clients are already disadvantaged because they're a social welfare payment, and then to top that off, then they're competing with people who are in full-time employment, who have landlord references. It's a really challenging environment.
Yeah, it's really hard and difficult in this time. Like, for example, talking about this, if you can do anything to improve the homelessness in here in Dublin, what would you do?
Oh, I always say if I won the lotto, or if I'd probably have to win Euro Millions, but I'd actually buy an apartment block to house people.
To house.
Yeah.
To help people.
And like to give people a home. So like working in medium support, you were giving people a home because it is their home, right? And to see someone that have that, just close that door behind them and bringing them to see their apartment that, and it's theirs, and watch them. Like when they first move in, they're kind of quiet and they're looking in and they're looking around, and then you start seeing them put their own stamp on it. So like they're buying their little bits and pieces and they're setting it up as their home, and that's really rewarding.
And to say like, this is my home.
Yeah, this is my home. Yeah, and like that's
really
one thing.
good.
Like I know we're emergency services, but I always feel that when someone walks through the door of our emergency services, they should feel welcome and they should feel safe and secure, and like that they get a warm welcome. Like that's right down to how someone answers the phone, that you always remember your first impression.
Yeah.
So like if you're meted by someone who's grumpy, that's going to be your lasting mark of that. Where if you're meeting with someone, although you're in a really difficult time in your life, but you're meeting with someone who's, come on in, have a cup of tea, sit down. Like that has huge impact on people.
Could you tell us one? Now you tell us a lot of good stories. Well, could you tell us one happy moment, like for example on Christmas, or with for example one match with the with the clients or the staff.
God, there's loads of moments. It's hard to think back at all the moments. To be honest, there's been so many of them. I think one moment that really struck me, another one that struck me lately, is that a couple of months ago really, we had someone older referred to our services, and they had fallen ill. They had been in hospital for a long time, and they had lost their property, and they were referred to one of our services. And the staff member rang me and said it was like their mother was after walking in the door, that it was a real reality check that this person could be homeless, like that they, it's just shocking. It was shocking for them. So a bit of work was done, and a lot of, like, we have a housing coordinator, so they were supporting them to look for a property. We hit a few bumps on the road. But they have successfully found that person a HAP property, and they were due to move into their property now shortly. So that's been
really good.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So yeah, it was so nice to hear all these stories, and sometimes you feel. So I know it's like really big challenge all this situation, but also it's like really nice when you see like the successful the clients, to meet the clients and see all the skills. So like now we are nearly on the end. Like thank you so much for all the stories. I have two more questions. So the first one, for you, what is home?
For me, like for personally, it's like having a space that you can call your own, and that you can share with people who you want in your life.
Love.
Yeah, and that you love. Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally is. Would you like to share something to the people who is hearing you?
I suppose just remember that you don't know what each person in front of you is facing every day, and just to be kind. You don't know what challenges that person might be facing, so just to be kind to them, and to say hello. Like clients often say that people don't say hello. Like a simple hello makes a huge difference to someone's day.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was so nice to hear all these stories, and I hope to see you next time.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. To find out how you can help, visit www.dubsimon.ie.
Dublin Simon. Homeless, not less.